Hey, what's going on, guys? Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. Man, the week is winding down, and just wanted to share another quick book review for you guys. So, one of my goals for the year, one of my New Year's resolutions was to read 100 books this year, which is pretty ambitious, given I don't know how many books I've even read in my whole life, but the last um, phew, year or so, 2022 was definitely a great year for reading, and even kind of packed in there at the end of the year. I feel like I burned through quite a few good ones that have continued to kind of stretch and expand my brain. So that's the hope, is to keep hammering through some quality reads, and so I just wrapped this one up. I think this is number 3 or 4 for the year. And I may be cheating a little bit with some of the other ones that come up, because I'm going to count books that I finished this year on my list, because over the years there's been so many that I start or get halfway through, and then I set it down. So as I get to the end and I'm trying to crank up those numbers, I'll probably be I'll probably be burning through those ones and count those on my list. So the goal will be to finish 100 books this year. So super excited to talk about this one. This is Sell It Like Serhant by Ryan Serhant. He is a celebrity real estate broker. That's one of the subtitles here is Star of Bravo's $1 million listing New York and Sell It Like Serhant. So I had seen this guy's face over social media. It seemed recognizable. And then I was watching one of Grant Cardone's Power Players from a few years ago, and he had interviewed Ryan. And I just thought, hey, man, this guy has great energy. And the volume he was doing at the time, just a couple years ago, I think he said his firm was doing $800 million a year in transactions, in real estate transactions. So I was like, boom, that is a guy, I want to get into his brain. I want to learn, what he's got going on. So ordered up his first book. He has another one called Big Money Energy, I think is what it's called. And so now that I'm doing this review and now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, I gotta add that one to the list. So I'm gonna add it to the list here as soon as I get done. But really enjoyed this book. Quick and easy read. Let's see, it's what, just a smidge, 216 pages. So quick read, really easy, really fun. He haven't watched much more of his media or content, but he seems just like a fun guy. And the book was definitely light, and what I liked about his approach to sales, to business, and I guess to his life is, it's real creative, it's fun, and he was originally an actor by trade, and grew up doing theater. So I feel like there's a lot of fun theatrics, right? So with um, a lot of the properties that he sells or the deals that he closes, he talks about all these creative ways. He brings a lot of creativity and kind of fun into the ways that he's building up his business, right? Some of the different parties that he throws, or the different themes that he assigns to these different buildings that he was responsible for, leasing out hundreds or selling hundreds of these units. So um, super cool, good read. Felt like I got a lot out of it, and just a quick page flip. I thought maybe this time I'll just glance at like the table of contents, see if anything jumps out at me. But I think because I posted an image of the book on LinkedIn, and the couple of words that I threw out there was discipline, creativity, and enthusiasm. So it's something he talks a lot about, is just sort of his mentality, since he decided to be a real estate broker, and he very much refers to himself as a salesman, and he wants to improve how salespeople are viewed, which I think is pretty interesting. And I've heard that from a number of people, like Sam Zell. When I read his book, he talks about there was some movie that came out or some director. And he said one of the worst things he ever did was kind of um, put salespeople in a negative light because it's such a valuable skill set, such a valuable profession. So, I don't know how true that is. I don't necessarily have any perspective on it. But it is interesting that some of these other, I think, people with credibility are saying things like that. So, chapter 1, he talks about the birth of a salesman. Chapter 2 is the power of yes, work for the deal, follow up, 7 stages of selling. So yeah, I mean, just at a quick glance, there's some great material here. Like one of these subtitles is "Let fear drive your success." So he really, and I've actually, it's interesting. He talks about how staying in New York City was a big driver for him, and the fear of going broke and having to get sent home to, his parents were in Colorado at the time. That was a big driver for his career. And it's funny because I had heard a very similar thing from a really famous designer, Debbie Millman, who was on Tim Ferriss's podcast. One of her biggest drivers to go kind of a corporate design route, sort of the way that she went, was to be able to fund a lifestyle that allowed her to stay in New York. So it's really interesting that there's a real draw to that city, and people who end up there, people who really like it there, find themselves being more driven so that they can afford the high cost of living. So there must be something in the water up there. I've never been. I'm excited to go now that I have family up there, and reading books like this, and just a lot of the history, and it be kind of a centerpiece of financial and culture. I want to definitely go visit it here relatively soon. So that was an interesting point. Okay, the power of yes. So one thing he does talk about is just he, I think, joined like 3 different gyms. Like that was his big social connection to start making these sales. And so I thought that was very interesting. He has a whole subsection on how like it's your job, as a salesperson to just to make as many contacts and meet as many people as you possibly can. So I thought that was great. He talks a lot about his follow-up strategy, which is he breaks it into 3 parts. Hey, there's following up with like a client that is kind of actively in the market for something. So I thought that it's interesting. So he calls it follow up, follow through, and then follow back. Whereas, in my mind for the last year or however long it's been, had just thought of it as follow up. Like that's all one thing. And so it's interesting to have it broken up into 3 different parts. For example, follow up is again like someone's interested in a product, you're actively helping them shop for something. And this is also an interesting point he makes regularly, which is, he says, people don't like to be sold, they do like to go shopping with friends. So that's a really interesting mentality that he takes on as, especially in this role that he's in now, where he's super high end, super luxury homes. He brings on these clients, and then there's, the process of the search or of helping them sell their home. He takes on that role of, hey, I'm a subject matter expert, but we're friends, and then I'm helping you shop around to try and find that perfect product. So very, very interesting point there. So follow up, active customer, actively in the market for something. Follow through, from his perspective, is delivering on whatever it is you said you'd deliver on. So like, and if I said I'm going to send you some information on this, you're following through, and you're getting them that information. If you said, hey, the deal's closed, and I'm going to get you X amount of financing, whatever it is, you're actually doing the work of being a service provider. So that's the follow through, is actually the different activities that go along with, hey, I said I'd get you this. Hey, I said I'd take care of this for you. And then the last one, the follow back. So that's for him is maybe what I had mostly thought of as follow up is if it's an unsold customer or if it's a customer you have gotten in a product. Now this is the recurring, the regular, the every so often, checking in, touching base, following back. How are things going? How's the product treating you? If you went another direction, how's that working out? So it's just interesting that he kind of breaks it up into these different little categories. One, and then chapter 5, he talks about the 7 stages of grief crossed out and replaces it with selling. And I thought this was super interesting and very relatable. In the last 5 years being in, sort of a service industry and then in a sales role and always customer interfacing, I feel like I really have gotten in tune with that roller coaster that people ride. There's this, oftentimes there's this excitement. And then, when there's a little bit of adversity, sometimes people can, they can kind of fall back on, frustration or, disappointment or things like that. And maybe right when you thought you lost them, you solved that problem, and then they come back and they think you're the hero, and they have complete amnesia about if they threw a tantrum or lost their cool or whatever it is. So it's just interesting hearing him talk about that roller coaster that you may ride with a client. So he talks about that, super interesting, and then he has a chapter called "You Need to Get FKD." And it's again his mental framework for his the finder, keeper, doer method, and saying that as a salesperson or a business person, um, you know probably long term and over time, your biggest, most important thing that you're doing is being a finder. You're finding new business, you're building the pipeline, you're marketing, you're building the top of your funnel, and finding new opportunities, gathering new opportunities. That's like the most important thing that you can be doing. And then, but once you have filled up that pipeline and now you're processing the business or the work, there's these other roles that come along with it. So the keeper in his framework is your kind of your CFO, your financial, your accountant, your controller hat in the business. And for him, in his business, he pretty early on, it sounds like, was putting out ads in the paper, or putting out ads for himself. And so that keeper method was like, okay, how much can I keep financially, like for personal expenses, and then how much can I reinvest back into the business? And that was a really interesting little nugget for me. And because now being kind of in the last year, having been in an individual contributor kind of a role, I don't know if I ever connected the dots to where can I invest, how can I invest into something to build up my own portfolio, to build up my own market. So he did that as being a real estate agent. And so it just really sparked that thought of like, what would be the equivalent in my world? And then again, now that I'm changing roles and for this role that I'm stepping into. So really appreciated that little bit of a different frequency. And then the doer method, the doer portion is, hey, just doing the work, right? So for him, it was drawing up the leases, meeting, doing the open houses, blah, like just all of the sitting down, putting on that hat and actually doing the work. And so then again, over time, he had like a graphic with bar graphs where it's like when you first start out, there may be kind of like a lot of doing and then just like a little bit of finding and then a little bit of keeping. And then over time, you should transition to where you're doing as much finding as humanly possible. And then hopefully as that grows, you're bringing on a team, and then you sort of start to delegate some of the keeper and then some of the doer aspects of the business. So interesting framework there. Definitely appreciated that. He has his 4 tenets of work, which were great. the chapter 8, be the one who. So it's like, finding what is your role as a salesperson. And he used an example of like a cabinet salesman in the show that he did, that this guy had to kind of find what is his role. Who he's the cabinet guy. He's the one who can take your cabinet project from cradle to grave and be there all the way throughout. So he kind of was talking about, find that and then really like perfect that. But a big piece of his mentality is like, once you've really like locked in a segment of business, like grow, like move up to the next thing and become that person. So for him, he started out leasing, relatively, I won't say inexpensive because it was a few $1,000s a month, and this was maybe 10 years ago, but he started out at the entry level of leasing these types of apartments. And then once he got to the stage where he was doing that and it was paying his bills, and he had like kind of like raised the floor of the type of work he was able to do, then he was like, okay, how do I become the guy who is leasing $4,000, $5,000 a month apartments, and then eventually like just tipping the scale into selling these apartments, and then growing to where you're selling and helping people buy the super super expensive high end ones. And so it's just like constantly ratcheting it up and moving up the totem pole there. Um, and so he talks about that you might have to change who you are in a sense. So like that cabinet guy, the example he said was like at a certain point he might have to change from like the one who can take a homeowner from A to Z and complete a project, to the one who can help a developer get a few hundred units all cabineted up with a seamless execution and no problems, right? So it's like, again, talking about scaling and being the person who can solve those types of problems. Um, so it was super good. That's kind of again the table of contents, and I think that's been as much of a thorough overview as I can give at the moment. But again, really really appreciated him sharing that information. And now this is a good reminder that I got to go get his next book. So I hope that was maybe useful to some people out there. Hope you're all having a super productive week and start to your year. Again, we're into the second month of the year, and I hope it's going well for you guys. And I will be talking to you soon. So talk to you later.